This is Brian Friedman. I'm here with an amazing show today. We are talking about a seat at the table. Now, this is probably the holy grail of global mobility. How can we give mobility that seat at the table? How can we ensure that mobility is not just operational, it is strategic? How can we create a strategic global mobility function? We're going to have a real good discussion for that. I see Lynn's coming over. Hello, it's from San Francisco. I think she said people are coming in from all over the world, which is just so great. So as I said, today we're going to be talking about a seat at the table. Now, if you're out there in LinkedIn world, then please do join in the conversation. Tell us who you are, where you are. Let's share questions you've got. Let's share any thoughts you've got as we get on to this really, really important subject. I see Petra is there. In fact, Petra is in the green room with us, and we're looking forward to her joining us later in our Changemaker section. We've got a fascinating show today. We're also going to be demoing BenivoGPT. Now, here's something. I'll ask you now, I'll ask you again later, but ask BenivoGPT to do something for you, because that's one of the things we're going to say. It may be, for example, you want it to draft a policy, or maybe you wanted to draft an email or draft an announcement or explain something to somebody. Ask you to do something, and we'll try live to show you what BenivoGPT can do. The secret with GPT is don't just ask it a question. Don't just say, I don't know, what is tax equalization? What you should do is ask it to do something like draft an email to an employee called John explaining what tax equalization is for someone who's moving from, I don't know, London to Bombay or something. So come up with some good questions, and we're going to show you that later. Also, I know a lot of you really like to get your CPE credits, and we've got all those here. So if you want your CPE credits, then if you want them from GMS, your GMS or your worldwide ERC CRP credits, the code is there, courtesy of our good friends at ERC. If you want credits from HRCI or SHRM, they're there, and I'll leave that up there for a moment or two. So if you do want the credits, you need the credits, then just jot down the relevant code or screenshot it or get your camera out and take a phone. But the codes are all there. I'm seeing Ferris coming in from Silicon Valley. I saw Rob Zeitz coming in from Cambridge. People coming in from all over the world. Next week, we've got another amazing show for you. Next week, we're going to be talking about the future of global mobility. So this week, we're talking about strategic global mobility. Next week, we're going to dream the dream of the future. But what's really special about next week's show is we're going open mic. So anybody can come on the show and join us. We'll give you the link to use it for next week when we're live on air. But it's going to be a fun show. So if you've got anything you want to say, if you ever wanted to be on stage, if you ever want to be on the show, then next week is your week. So it should be absolutely, absolutely fascinating. So obviously, one of the things we always do is we like to share with you what's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility. So Tally, can I ask you, let's run that video. Let's see what the breaking news has been in the last 7 days. who has been promoted, anybody who has moved job, many congratulations to all of you. Just a couple of shout outs, actually. A particular congratulations I noticed to Samir Mamadov, who's moved from Vialto Partners to become the managing partner for Anderson. So many congratulations to you, Samir. And also, we had the Emma's Awards the other day in EMEA, and I'd like to give a shout out to some of the individual winners, to Miriam Van Kempen from Heart Relocation, who's the rising star, to Claire Wielden of AstraZeneca, who's the Global Mobility Professional of the Year. And then again, special shout outs to Ian Robinson, who won the Lifetime Achievement Award, and then a very new award that was which was the Legacy Award, to Kerwin Guillermo from HPE, who's now moving out of mobility into a broader non-mobility specific role. So congratulations to them, and of course to everybody else who has won awards. And as Ian McCluskey said, there's some very exciting job opportunities there too. So anyway, let's move on. Let's now look at immigration. So without further ado, let's run that video and welcome onto the stage Julia Onslow-Cole. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's welcome onto the stage Julia Onslow-Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Right, Julia, hi, how are you? How are you?
Very well,
and where are you today?
I'm actually back in London.
Lovely. And what are you going to be talking to us about today?
So I just really was going to talk to you about trying to fit in with the topic that you're talking about, really about the importance of, using tech for strategic advice. And I was really just going to talk for a couple of minutes about how tech and data can really support immigration strategic advice. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to Will Baird, who the partner from London, and also Mark Buchanan, from our partner from Singapore. So in the past, clients for immigration would just be asking for very simple things like expiry tracking, costs, and then very high level details of population. But now they're asking for much more granular detail. And in particular, they're asking for very detailed demographics. And they really want to know about speed to landing. And they don't want to know this at a very high level. They want to really understand speed to landing. Also, they want to understand assignee experience and HR business partner experience. And really, all of this information goes to talent attraction and retention. And we're at this very interesting phase where some global mobility leaders really understand exactly what they want from data and analytics. They want perfect dashboards, and they understand what is required from them by the business. And then others are really struggling, and actually they're not quite sure why they're required to give this information. And even, they're not really sure, the people that are asking for them for this information, what they're doing with it either. Now, when I was in Dubai, I actually sit on the board, the international board of Dubai government, and there are a lot of different CEOs that sit on the board, and they were all saying that they thought there'll be a lot of global mobility around moving people because of supply chains. And what we are seeing is clients looking at their supply chains and expansion plans. And we've seen a lot of clients go from Hong Kong, they're moving to Vietnam. They found it quite tough to actually comply with all immigration and some of the regulations in Singapore. So they were setting up manufacturing hubs in Vietnam. Then actually, if you recall, that immigration law got very tough in Vietnam, and they're looking for new places. So immigration is actually one of the key factors that clients can look at when they're choosing the supply chain hubs. And, you know, if you're very clever with your data and you've got a lot of comparative data, which you can benchmark behaviors, you can really look at things like average salaries, you can look at access to local markets, you can look at retention rates. So, you know, what's the average stay of different assignees? And all of this can be really helpful, not just for your global mobility policies for attraction and retention, but to make key decisions about whether or not, you know, this will be a very good place to move. Now, I was speaking to Mark Buchanan about this on Tuesday, our partner who's head of Asia Pac, and he said that in the past, clients were asking, you know, how long is it going to take to get someone, say, to Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, tricky countries. And in the past, you know, you would just get the information off a government website, but now we can do it on a real-time basis. We can actually look right through our data. We can see how long it's actually taking to move people across all of our clients to Indonesia, to Vietnam, to Malaysia, and we can give that information to clients on a real-time basis. And this is much more informative and it's much more helpful when you're actually dealing with projects. And the week before last, I was in Saudi Arabia. I was actually in the NEOM project right up near the border of Jordan. And, you know, when companies are doing big projects like that or any other giga projects in Saudi, they really need to know on a real-time basis, how long is this realistically going to take me? And so with difficult jurisdictions, that information is really key. And I mean, Fragaman do have a work-ready tool, which actually you can do that, and I know others have that sort of tool as well. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the new compass system in Singapore. So we've talked a lot about the compass system because it's really important, and we've really trailed this. We've really explained to everyone what it is. So it's a new points-based system, very complicated. It's not just how many people do you employ in Singapore, you know, your own population of foreign nationals, but what do your competitors do and how do you rank against your competitors? And if you're from the 1st September, anyone's employment pass whose expires after 1st September, they have to go onto the new compass system, and the salaries are higher. And if you can't qualify for an employment pass, you have to apply for an S pass. So you need to know what your quotas are like for S passes, and you need to know whether or not your staff are going to qualify if they have to be renewed for an employment pass. And because we're coming up now, we're coming into the end of the year, and we're looking in the beginning of next year, which is appraisal time. You know, you really want to know all of this information now because it will affect what you do with appraisals and your whole sort of appraised of your workforce. Now, in Singapore, there is a tool where individually you could go on and you could actually see, does this particular person, does he meet the compass system? But what we're finding is that clients are actually reluctant to use government tools because you have to give very specific information. And what clients want is they want, you know, if I move 20 people to Singapore, how overall does this affect my quotas? They don't want to put an individual in. And so it's very important that you have these flexible tools. Again, I mean, Fragaman have them, but I'm not saying that other people don't have them as well. But it's just important that you have access to flexible tools outside of government systems, and you're not just relying on a government system. And you have to do this in advance because you cannot just sit and wait and then say, oh, the business has told us to move 20 people to Singapore, and then find out it has catastrophic effects in the compass system across your population. So just in essence, very complicated topic. But, you know, as we get further and further forward, it's only going to get more complex. And it's really, really important that you look at your immigration from a talent attraction and retention perspective, and you really, really dig into the data and the benchmarking.
Okay, Julia, that's fascinating. And we're going to be talking a lot about technology on the show, and a lot about how we can move mobility from being operational to strategic to get that seat at the table. And certainly the immigration aspect is hugely important, and we're going to be talking about that as we go through. And just putting this up here again, just to remind people, do ask BenivoGPT to do something for you out there in LinkedIn. Ask it to, as I said, draft a policy or write an email or make an announcement or anything you want. But let's put it to the test. We want to show you what this technology can do live. We're now going to move on. We're going to bring onto stage our change maker for the week. And I'm delighted to say we've got Petra Ray from Texas Instruments joining us. So everybody, hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big, big thank you to Julia Onzo Cole and welcome onto the stage the wonderful, inspirational Petra Ray.
Hello, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And hello to my fellow change makers and global mobility experts out there.
Petra, hi. It's just great to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. And tell me, whereabouts are you today?
I am in Dallas, Texas, which is where Texas Instruments, the company I work for, is headquartered.
Okay. That makes sense. And for people who don't know, I think most people know Texas Instruments, but just tell us, what does the company do and what's your role there?
Yeah, so most people hear Texas Instruments and think, oh, you build calculators. That's sort of like saying to an HR professional, oh, you hire and fire people. And we all know there's so much more to that. But Texas Instruments is a microchip processing company. So we have our microprocessing chips going to a lot of applications all over the world. So when you hear about chip shortages, Texas Instruments is caught up in that as well. We are a global company in lots of different countries around the world, and I'm the global mobility program leader for Texas Instruments, and I've been here for 4 years. And prior to that, I was with other global companies.
And roughly speaking, how many people do you move, sort of internationally or domestically?
Yeah, so last year we moved about 640 people domestically and internationally. Most of that came from our rotation program. So domestically, it could be within the US or within the country that a person is from. And then the rest of it is one-way transfers across countries or expats.
Okay. And what do you like about being a change maker?
I like the ability to impact people's lives, to make the role of global mobility professionals easier through technology and other aspects.
Okay, cool. Now, of course, one of the things we do with change makers, we always support a charity of your choice. So tell us about your charity and why it's so dear to your heart.
Yeah, so the charity that I'm supporting right now is called Orlando Athletic Training Academy, or OAT Academy. They're actually based in Orlando, Florida. And you might be wondering why Florida instead of someplace in Texas.
Yeah. And you said you're originally from Michigan, so I'm still not seeing the Orlando connection here.
Yes, yes. So the Orlando connection is when I was around high school age, we had a family friend who was in ministry in the US with her husband. And I was so inspired by what she did. I promised myself that when I graduated from college and got a job, that I would become a financial supporter of her. So for the past 20 plus years, I have been supporting them financially because I believe in the work that they do.
Oh, wow. That is just wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So Petra, thank you so much for being a change maker. We really appreciate all the support you give us as we design what we like to think is, groundbreaking technology for our industry. But also just for your support generally as we're talking about new ways of doing things and, the whole changemaker community. If anybody out there would like to become a changemaker, then please just message me or message Tally, and we'd love to have you on board. What we're looking for is people who are running at a regional or global level mobility programs in in-house roles. So anyway, many thanks, Petra. It's been great having you on the show. We'll get you back another time for more detail, but it's been a brief introduction to the show, brief introduction to you. What we're now going to do is we're now going to bring onto the stage Mary Weaver, who's going to be telling us a bit about what some of the things that are going on in Benivo over the next week or so. And also, this is actually the last week when you can nominate anybody to become a top 100 community champion. So let's run that video. Let's hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, say cheerio to Petra Ray, and welcome to our stage, Mary Weaver.
Hi, Brian. It's great to be here today with so many colleagues and friends from around the world.
Mary, always good to see you. And you're in Atlanta today, I'm guessing. Is that right?
Yes, I am in Atlanta today and traveling to Nashville to see many of my mobility friends there. So I have a couple of announcements to share today. As Brian mentioned, there's just 1 week left to submit nominations for the top 100 community champions. And we really want to acknowledge and celebrate those exceptional contributions of corporate global mobility professionals who've made a significant positive impact on their communities. So be sure to submit those nominations. Nominations will close on November 15th, and then the champions will be announced on December 13th. And so next, we have a couple of events just around the corner. First, the GME Live event will be held in London tomorrow, November 9th. So if you plan to attend, look for Nitzan and Beth, who will lead 2 sessions. First, a plenary session on revolutionizing global mobility and harnessing the power of AI, GPT, and data. And they'll also lead a breakout session on using AI, GPT, and data to transform the role of mobility today. And I also want to mention that Julia will be presenting in another session, so be sure to check that out. And one other event that I'd like to announce for the first time is that we will host another Tech Connect breakfast. These have been very well attended and well received around the world. And this one will be in Chicago on November 30th. Tally will share the registration link. I see it there now. And for those of you in the Chicago area, we would love to have you join us.
Okay, so some great events coming up. They said one in London, one in Chicago. And yeah, so great events. Hopefully a number of you can get to either the London one or the Chicago one, or the event. You said you're in Nashville tomorrow. Is that also a mobility event?
Yes, that is for the Tennessee Relocation Council.
Cool. Okay, so anybody in that region, then there's another event going on there, and reach out to Mary if you want more information on that. Okay, we're now going to move on to our main discussion. And the main discussion is about getting that seat at the table in sort of quote marks, becoming strategic, moving from operational to strategic. And to join me as we discuss that, I'm delighted we've got with us from Benivo, both Beth Nielsen and Janice Quigley. So let's move on to that discussion and let's get into some really cool stuff. So everybody hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's run that video and welcome onto stage Beth Nielsen and Janice Quigley.
Brian. Hi, Janice. Great to be on the show today.
Hi, Beth. Hi, Brian. It's great to be here.
Hi to both of you. It's great to see you both on the show. And it's a really, really important subject. We're talking about strategic global mobility, how to make global mobility move from operational to strategic, where tech comes into all this. And as I said, we have asked you out in LinkedIn world, if there's a question you want to ask GPT, then do pop it in the comments box, and we'll try and get onto that in a moment. But we're going to be talking about a huge amount more than that. And I'm going to start with you, Beth. Okay, we've used this phrase, strategic global mobility. What is it? What are we talking about?
That is a fantastic question. When we're talking about strategic global mobility, we're talking about moving away from the operational role. So what we found is that mobility is such a hands-on process, having to do things urgently, that there often isn't time to be strategic. So strategic global mobility is actually not just seeing how many processes you do every day, how many assignment letters you've created, how many people you've responded to. But what does that mean? Using that data to actually then inform the business and maybe change the processes that you're doing, making sure that you're not just getting talent in the right place, but you're doing it in the best way and you're getting the right talent to the right location.
Okay. And how is that different to what people have done historically?
Well, it'd be great to get Janice on that. Did you know it's Janice's 1-year anniversary this week as well at Benivo? So it's great to finally get her on the show after all that time.
Well, come on, let's give some love to Janice. Everybody hit the heart button, hit the like button, especially the heart button, the applause button. Let's celebrate Janice's Beniversary.
Thank you, everybody.
So Janice, tell us what people have done historically.
So what people have done historically, when you're really thinking about it, is for far too long, mobility is really always the last to know. Normally, professionals are they're always put in that reactive role, with reducing resources, decreasing team sizes, and honestly, increasing complexity within their actual global mobility programs. All of the resources are normally spent on, putting out fires or addressing immediate operational needs, moving people instead of really strategically thinking, hey, how can I do this best from a business perspective? So, some of those time consuming tasks Beth kind of listed off already, but, like creating cost estimates, making sure that, hey, we have the money, we can move them. It makes the most business sense. That can be very time consuming. Creating assignment letters, just as Beth said, that's very time consuming. Copying and pasting into, different documents. There's a lot of, room for human error. Gathering signatures for specific documents, instead of a click of a button, you're sitting there waiting for the employee to sign this. What's the status of this? A big one that I've always seen, especially from my past clients, is, reporting, that ad hoc reporting and like gathering specific data that you need, but, you're waiting on someone to send you this report. And then you have to analyze that data instead of just being able to see the information right up front.
Yeah, and you look stupid in front of your boss, don't you? Your boss comes down to you and says, I need a report about what has happened with so-and-so or in such and such a location. And you say, okay, well, I've got to go and do the report, and it takes you 24 hours. And meanwhile, your boss is tapping their fingers on the table, on the keyboard, and then getting a bit grumpy with you and thinking, well, who are these people in mobility? They're just sort of, they're not on top of the game, because as far as they're concerned, they think, you know what, you should just know it. And the reality is you don't. And then, as you said, simple tasks like, finding whether it's housing or this or that, you think, oh, it's going to be very simple, but you end up copying and pasting and putting documents together. Or they say to you, we need a relocation policy for pets or something. And, can you put one together? And then you think, well, what am I going to do? And I'm going to sort of, phone a friend or go and speak to an RMC or this or that. And it just takes time. And indeed, it can be expensive. And to me, sometimes as an industry, we're too busy being busy that we don't have time to be strategic. As we talked about earlier, you can be so busy dealing with all the urgent stuff. I nearly said a rude word. So busy dealing with all the urgent stuff that you can't actually get around to dealing with the important stuff. And I remember somebody once saying to me that you're juggling all these balls in the air, and how do you make sure you don't drop any of these balls that you're juggling in the air? And the answer is easy: just put a few balls down and juggle less balls. And the way to do that, and that's what we're going to discuss today, or one of the ways to do that, is to use technology to make your life easier. I'm going to come back to you, Beth, because I know we're going to be talking about GPT later. But I know we've got a saying in Benivo. We say that GPT or tech is our superpower. And actually, we say that no one should ever have to draft an email again. We just become editors rather than drafters. Tell us, we're going to go into it in more detail later, but Beth, tell us a bit about the superpowers that tech can give us.
Well, I think what Janice is saying, and it's probably worth highlighting that Janice comes from a lot of global mobility background, having worked at an RMC similar to my background. Yeah. And these superpowers that we get are the ability to do something just in less time. As we're all really aware, mobility is being asked to do more and more, especially since COVID. We've got the virtual assignments. Often you're now responsible for the self-initiated moves, monitoring those remote workers. Maybe some project workers have been thrown your way. It used to be that your question was, oh, should we be responsible for short-term business visitors or not? And many mobility teams managed to not have that responsibility. And now suddenly, every single possible relocating employee seems to be hitting the global mobility team. And actually, I was at FEM last week, and one of the teams was talking about their group being reduced from 11 people to 3 in this time. So additional complexity, fewer people. So how do you use technology? Well, you use technology to automate repetitive tasks. So some of the things that we're going to show today, concentrating first on maybe the employee. So drawing on my my RMC background, often the first time and the only time that you provide individuals with information is you send them an email. You send them an email with 100 attachments, telling them everything that they need to know for their next 6-month assignment or 12-month assignment. And then what happens? Yeah, exactly. What happens? They don't open it, or they maybe open it, read it once, and then 10 minutes later or a week later, they come back to you and ask questions. And so it's not really saved you any time, because even though you've provided them with this data, they don't know that they've received it. Or maybe you give them a briefing, but they don't remember the information that they were provided with because they're so overwhelmed during that process. And that's where technology can step in and help.
And there is some cool tech. I know we're going to come on to it later. We've talked about getting the technology to effectively write the emails for you. We can also get the technology to read the emails too. And we're going to be coming onto that as well. But Janice, I think you wanted to come in at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say, just doubling back of what Beth said, for that GM professional, it's really tough to actually have it all organized and stay, in the know what's happening now, and having so many different pieces and different places that they have to gather information to just keep up with one employee assignment. When you're thinking of a good example would be vendors, for instance, having to reach out to so many different platforms and, gather different details, different reports from them, and then combine it all into one to get that overview picture can be really tough. So, another way of, automating that and making that more efficient is with vendor integrations and, combining them all so that you can see it all on one platform.
Yeah, I remember, we are a very multi-skilled industry. We have to have so many skills. I remember I was chatting to one guy. Actually, I'll give him a shout out. It was Chris Debner, who I was talking to, and he said to me once that if mobility was an Olympic sport, what Olympic sport would it be? And I loved his answer. His answer was, it would be the decathlon, because what we have to do is we've got all those different areas of expertise we have to be good at, be it, immigration or tax or relocation or housing or, schooling, insurance, 100 different areas. So it's like a decathlon, but the analogy goes on. But actually, like most decathletes, we've probably got one area that we're best at. if you like, was our original sport, the way we originally got into it. So we might be a tax person that's gone into relocation. We might be an immigration person that's gone into relocation. We might be a relocation person that's gone in and needs to know about tax and immigration, et cetera, et cetera. But we've all come in some way. But the question then is, how can we actually broaden out from the deep expertise we may have in one area to the bigger expertise in other areas? And again, that is where I think technology can help us and give us those superpowers. We did actually do a little survey. I might just sort of show it up here. We asked, how can mobility best achieve that seat at the table? And we came up with various solutions. We came up with by achieving cost efficiencies, by enhancing employee experience, by mitigating compliance risk, or by using predictive analysis. And these were the responses. So let's just shove these responses up there here. So we can see what those responses are. And 22% of the people we surveyed said we can achieve the seat at the table by achieving cost savings. 42%, which was the largest group, said we can get that seat at the table by enhancing employee experience. Another 17% said we can get it by minimizing compliance risk. And then 20% said by using predictive analytics. Beth, do you have a particular favorite there, or do you think it's actually all of the above?
Well, it's certainly all of the above, but my focus, and I think that one of those easy wins, is the employee experience. So that's the ones where it will reduce noise and it will improve the employee experience such that your team can deal with the important things rather than the urgent things. If an employee is not able to figure out who we should contact about their tax return or who they should provide information to for their immigration to get sorted, that is urgent. That is something that needs to be dealt with now. If you use technology to ensure that an employee has 24/7 access to that data, you can then focus on the important things, not the urgent ones. And so that would be where my immediate focus is. And I think that's where a lot of the time can be saved, which will then enable you to go into those other things, such as the strategic data side of things.
I've got a feeling there might be a demo coming up here. We would like to demo some technology. So we're talking about employee. So shall I share your screen? Shall I pull that up?
Please do. I mean, this is how Benivo clients do this, but it's just an example of why an employee experience is so important. I know that some technologies and some companies will focus on the global mobility team side, and I know we're going to demo that potentially later in today's show. And obviously, the BenivoGPT is primarily, we've made it available to global mobility professionals first. But from an employee perspective, having an employee portal is just life-changing for employees. They can go into their action list. They can see what's due now. What do I need to do in order to do it? What did everyone else do? So it's all that important information in an action list, which is completely configurable, customizable, hyper-personalized, depending on the type of employee assignment or permanent transfer that they're going on. And it can include things that are just specific to that individual's relocation. And not include anything else that's extraneous. So that to me is 24/7 access to data in an understandable format.
Yep. And adding on to that, time efficiency for the actual, GM professional. They don't have to sit there and ask these questions or keep up to tasks with that employee and, really improving that employee satisfaction. So many things to juggle. It's one of the most stressful things that, any human can do is actually relocating their entire family to a completely different part of the world that they most likely have no idea what the culture is like and can be very tough on them. So having all of it in one place is just really helpful for them.
Yeah. And obviously technology-wise, we have the option at Benivo of having people behind the scenes, but also a bot to answer frequently asked questions. So always having a way of accessing data, being able to have a site that's searchable. I mean, it sounds really obvious. It sounds like something we do every day on every single portal and technology that we have access to. But not all technology, not all employees who are relocating have access to this. So a searchable portal get you the information that you need now, because it could be 4 o'clock in the morning. You've woken up and suddenly you've realized, hang on a second, I need to do something about my immigration. How do I ask someone? Oh, I don't need to. I just go into my app, search for that, and I'll show you an example of say for immigration. And I know this is where you pretend that we sell pizzas, Brian, but that pizza delivery, Uber Eats experience of where's my process? Where am I?
Let me just pick up on that comment for people who don't know are in in-house pizza joke. One of my greatest bugbears, I know I've mentioned it on the show, but those who haven't sort of seen this particular analysis before, is that we get better technology in our everyday lives than we do in our relo lives. And in particular, we quite often enjoy better technology when we're ordering a pizza than when we do in relocation. If I order a pizza, I can see well, first I can read the reviews before I order, but then having done that, I can see exactly where it is. You know, has the order been accepted? Is it in the oven? Is it on the bike on the way over to me? Has it been delivered, etc.? So I can see it. That technology should be in our relo life. That's what employees demand. So tell us a bit about how this is working then to show people where they are in the, if you like, the pizza delivery analogy of delivering their visa or their tax return or their shipping or their relo or whatever it might be.
So Janice, I know that we have this available on both the employee side and the HR side. I'll take care of the demo. Do you want to talk to either of those?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's really nice when you're, I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's okay. So from an SLA perspective, you're able to monitor your vendors, where they are in the process. And this is obviously the employee side. It's equally important that on the vendor side, you have access to that information. So again, you know, within Benivo, or we just want to make sure that everyone has access to this, but within Benivo, you can track that under the people grid. So where it is for your individual person. So anything that they've had initiated, you can see where it is in the process, what data is required. And then more importantly, for saving time, rather than having to go into each and every individual person's report, you can just go and have a look, in this case, immigration, where is everything for your whole population. So this is using data to focus on the important and not on the urgent, because nothing should be urgent. It all should be taken care of and tracked for you, so that you're focusing only when a vendor has dropped the ball or an employee has not done what they're meant to have done. And you can make sure you pick that up before it becomes an escalation.
So this is giving us predictive analytics. So it's showing us so we're picking up a problem before it becomes a problem.
Exactly. And this ties back into what Julia was saying earlier about companies not just wanting to know when's the immigration expiry date, when was something applied for, but also, you know, the impact on the start date. Which of these assignments is looking as though maybe that start date is unrealistic? We've all heard, and you know, Janice and I have both had experience of this, of having to rewrite assignment letters. Now, although we can show you how you can generate an assignment letter in one click, you still don't want to have to do that 4 or 5 times because the immigration's been delayed. You want to know in advance, is the immigration date that the business has set in any way realistic? And if not, what date should be set? What date is realistic based on real-time information from your other cases and how they've progressed through the system? And that's what AI and that's what analytics is enabling you to do. Base it on prior start to end times of a immigration process, and when is actually going to be realistic for that individual to start their assignment.
And this is where you are going to get the corporate brownie points, or indeed the corporate black marks. That if you've got an assignee or a person who's transferring and they need to be in wherever, Tokyo, on the 1st of January, and you call up your boss or the line on, let us say, the 24th of December and say, bad news, the person isn't going to be there because their visa hasn't come through yet and the offices are closed, then, you know, you're not going to look that good. If, on the other hand, you can call them up in, say, September or October and say they're only at this stage and therefore they need to do X, Y, and Z. And if they do that, then we're going to get there. Then you're in a much stronger position. And you'll know that if you know, for example, by looking at historical data with other people, that actually visas to Tokyo take X number of weeks, and if stage 1 hasn't been achieved by then, etc., etc. So there's a funnel, and I think that's what we're showing here. And the funnel then actually lets you predict. But let's move on. I want to talk about how we can automate manual processes. That's another area where I think we as mobility professionals have spent maybe too much time. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how we can automate manual processes?
Yeah, so there's loads of manual processes that we do in mobility. I know we've worked with some of our clients to automate 50, 60, 70 processes. And that's something you do during implementation. So identify which processes have a template. So, for example, we've already mentioned cost estimates in previous sessions, which cost estimates have a standard template, standard format that you are having to produce. And rather than having to send it away, just do it in one click through your technology. I mean, that can save hours. And obviously, at Benivo, we don't charge for that either. So it can save a huge amount of cost. So for me, that's, with my tax background, cost estimates are always something that saves huge amounts of time and tells the business immediately before they spend any money, is that assignment actually going to deliver the return on investment that they're looking for? Because sometimes an assignment might be too expensive. And if you don't know about that before you send someone, you're just setting that assignment up for failure. How about you, Janice? Any examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So a good example and a very real example that I have with one of my clients is, assignment letters. They take the time to sit there and copy and paste from all of these different local registrations and like making sure that, hey, this assignment letter is right. And as you mentioned, they might have to rewrite that a few times. It could take one person a couple of hours just to fill one of those out, make sure that it's all correct. And, there's a lot of possibility for human error in that. So, with a click of the button and, just dropping down, this is the different location, this is, the type of move that they're going to be doing. And it all just generates in a click of a button, can be very helpful and really time efficient and, less cause for manual error. As well as I mentioned before, those were payment agreements, those documents that need to be signed by multiple parties or just by the employee themselves, saying, hey, instead of shooting out, 5 different emails, hey, can you make sure that this is signed? You're unsure of the status of when it's signed. Being able to see that status and then, make sure once they sign it, you already have a copy in your inbox can be very helpful.
Okay. I want to make sure we get onto BenivoGPT because this is so cool. I did ask people in LinkedIn to sort of come up with questions, but I have not seen any questions coming through. So we're going to have to make up our own. But if you've got a question, something you want GPT to do for you, then please do show. So, but just to explain, for those of you, I don't know how many people have used GPT and in particular BenivoGPT, but let me just explain a little bit about it. You may have heard of ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is different. ChatGPT is an open system that goes out, everything you put out there goes out into the world. BenivoGPT, first of all, it's trained specifically on tax and mobility logic, on immigration logic, but it's also it's designed specifically to be used on your policy. So it can be very policy specific. Now, the version we're going to be showing now, obviously, is not designed on anybody's particular policy. It is more generic. So let's just try one. Let's just try a question.
Show my screen, Brian. I'm happy to do this live.
Sure. Okay. Let's share your screen.
Yeah. And we can also show people how this works on Benivo. And as people have been saying in the chat, and I've been trying to read along at the same time as presenting, but this is something that will be trained on your data. So for all of our clients, included for free, you have access to BenivoGPT, and it's as good as the data that you train it on. So we'll obviously have access to the data in your site, but also we want it trained on your policies, your processes. And when I've been presenting this,
so Beth, I'm not seeing the GPT screen.
Oh, sorry. So you would click on the GPT in the top right. There you go.
That's where we go. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing that I think about this as being the most powerful. You can try to get people to say questions. Right.
So people can see what we've got here.
Okay. There you go. So there we go.
So we've got BenivoGPT. This is our AI solution. So let's just try. We can ask a question. So okay, let's just. I'm going to just ask one straight away. I'm going to make this up on the top. Draft a pet relocation policy. Let's just try that. So we've got it to draft a policy. Okay, and we're just waiting, and that will draft a policy right now.
Now, I think someone asked a question earlier that if you ask it to draft a policy, will it come up with the same information every time? And I think this is where your prompt is really important. You want to make sure that it's drafting a policy that's relevant for you. But the biggest benefit I see of the BenivoGPT is how many mobility teams are not exclusively working on mobility. So maybe you've got 4 or 5 HR people in multiple locations dealing with 1 or 2 mobility cases a year. They don't have time to be trained on everything. They don't have time to read all those policies. And this is a way of them having immediate access to that information for consistency, for speed. You don't have to train them. They just have access to that data.
Okay. And I'm just going to I saw a couple of questions from Imelda, and I want to explain a bit about what GPT does and what it doesn't. So Imelda's question was, for example, how much do you spend on payroll in August in Spain? Don't think of it like that. That's not the sort of thing it's best for. You can use other tools for that. Think of it as it's technology that will do something for you. So it'll write an email. So, for example, Imelda asked, what is maternity policy in Spain? Well, I mean, that needs to be trained on your policy. But what we could get it to do is, for example, say, here's one. Write an email to an employee called John Smith explaining tax equalization policy. Please write the email in French. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that's being literally just typed up there, and we just wait a second. And
I feel that I'm being tested as well on my typing skills. So
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So
I'll scroll down so you can see that.
In French explaining tax equalization. That's the sort of thing that it is absolutely amazing for. Now I'll give you. We'll do one more just to give you an idea of the sort of thing it does. I mean, that's writing up. Let's say, please explain to an Indian employee. To an Indian employee who is working in Palo Alto. You with me there, Beth? Please explain to an Indian employee who's working in Palo Alto on an L1 visa, what are the implications of his employment being terminated? Okay. Now, I must say, as this is coming up, this should not be used as a substitute for proper professional advice. You should always take it. But bear in mind, what this should be doing is drafting something for you rather than giving the final advice. So,
and again, it's as good as the data you train it on. So if you've previously received advice on this and you can train that, and it's obviously dated, and you can validate the source that it's come from, you then don't have to ask the same question to your provider 5, 6, 7 times if it is something that you've already been provided advice on and that was recent. So I think for there, it's also a great way of sharing knowledge amongst a team so that you're not incurring duplicate consulting costs for asking the same question.
Absolutely. And then I want to move on to another subject. So people see, so let's stop sharing screen at this moment. I'll take that off. So that gives you an idea of what this technology can do. And this technology, whatever we think about it, it is the future, and it will get better and better and better. But this is using technology to basically write emails for you, or rather draft emails for you. What about technology that can read emails for you? And here we're talking about something called sentiment analysis. So Beth, tell us a bit about sentiment analysis.
So sentiment analysis is, and this is really topical because we spoke about this at the FAM last week, that people are suffering with polling fatigue. So every time they go on assignment, their household goods provider will poll them before, during, after the shipment. Maybe they'll also have one from their immigration, tax, and everyone does it multiple times because they're constantly being asked to meet SLAs.
Don't they? They get
survey fatigue. Yeah. So one of the ways that AI can be useful, and feel free to share my screen when you're ready, Brian, is by reading those emails. So at Benivo, we have the ability of those emails to go through the Benivo platform in an anonymized and safe way, which means that the system can then read those emails and understand which of your providers is providing a great service, which providers
so if
are
I
not.
Look at this
And
screen,
sorry.
if I look at this screen, I'm assuming green is good, red is bad.
Green is good.
That...
Exactly. Yeah. And this is not a feedback score. This is not a plus or minus, not a thumbs up or thumbs down. This is based on their email language. So their sentiment in that email, which is just absolutely amazing. And I'm clicking, as you saw there, on the 4 people who are at risk of a negative experience. And what this is now going to show me is who are those 4 people and why, what have they had a negative experience about? And apologies, my computer's not playing. There we go. It's not playing ball with me, but if I scroll across here, you'll be able to see not just the names of those people and why they've had negative, but why is it negative? And you've got here like a mismatch in expectations, a delayed resolution, and then a summary of the conversation. And for me, this is where AI just blows your mind. Yeah,
it is mind blowing. I mean, in the simplest way, I'll give you again. I like to think of my everyday examples. When you go through an airport quite often, and you've been through whatever security, there's quite often little buttons that you hit, and there's a sort of a green happy face and a red grumpy face and various faces in between. And what they're doing is they're taking the experience and it's getting there. This in a way is doing that with your emails. Mm-hmm. This is reading the emails and is telling you, is that a happy email or is that a grumpy email? And imagine the way that this will work is that before you even read the email, on the side of the email is a smiley face or a grumpy face or a neutral face. So you know immediately what is the tone. Now, each individual one, you might say, well, it may not be precisely right. You may say some people write differently. But you look at law of large numbers, and if you're getting 30 grumpy emails about one particular location or service provider or aspect of your policy, and then you're getting 30 happy emails about something else that you're doing, then that's giving you very strong feedback. And you don't even have to go back to do a survey. I mean, you can do one if you want to find out what's going on, but you don't have to do a survey because the tech has done the survey for you by reading the email. It is
independent. Yeah, this is the thing that's great. So you're not relying on your vendor to do it anymore. And you're not having to go through that, fatigue of sending multiple emails. And how do you monitor a vendor?
Yeah. Also,
they're reaching their SLAs. Sorry, Jen.
No, that's okay. Also, not missing the survey at all. Some employees don't survey at all. Some people just, don't believe in it or they don't have time for it. And this is actually going to be capturing the entire population versus just a portion.
Yeah. No, I think this is game changing.
Yeah. I mean, this tech blows my mind. And I said, it's up to us. We can either stay as an industry and it's as individuals being firefighters, or we can become strategic partners. And what we're saying is the tech that is there now, maybe for the first time ever, is allowing us to stop doing the mundane and to focus on the strategic. Now, that is hugely important. It is ground changing. People quite often are threatened by technology. They think, am I going to lose my job? To Mitch, my answer to that is absolutely. You're going to lose the job that you've got, but what you're going to gain is a new job. And the new job is a much more powerful strategic job that is out there and is ready for you to grab. The future is actually quite bright. We are now out of time. I'm going to bring on if we can bring on Petra and Julia and Tally back onto stage, and we're going to make our goodbyes. Next week, I'm delighted to say that we're going open mic, and we're going to be talking about the future of global mobility. So we've got an amazing week lined up for you, or show lined up for you next week, the future of global mobility. I hope you've all enjoyed the show. I hope the technology has really impressed on you how mobility can make you how technology can make mobility way more strategic. So everybody, take care, have a great week, and we will see you all this time next week. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.